Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for MarkMonitor's webinar, Strategies for Keeping Your Online Partners in Check. We'll be discussing the importance of having a partner compliance policy in place, and we'll share key guidelines for developing and enforcing an effective partner compliance policy. And I'm Reagan Dermu of MarkMonitor. Before we begin our presentation, I'd just like to run everyone through a few housekeeping items. During today's webinar, all participant lines will be muted, and that's simply to ensure that there is no background interference or noise. Following our presentation, we'll be holding a brief Q&A session, and if you have a question at any time for our speaker during the presentation, feel free to submit it using the Q&A tab located on your screen. You can also submit your question at any time at the end of the session. For any questions our speaker doesn't have time to get to today, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the event. Now, we are recording today's event, and we plan to send out a follow-up email to all registrants with the link to the recording and presentation slides over the next couple of days. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today's presentation. We're joined by MarkMonitor brand protection expert, Darla Rumsey. Darla is a senior brand client engagement manager at MarkMonitor and has 25 years of experience building and maintaining various types of channel and partner programs. She partners closely with many global companies to safeguard their brands and online reputations by providing ongoing support and strategic analysis across the suite of MarkMonitor brand protection offerings. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Darla to get us started.
Great, thank you, Reagan, and thank you everybody for joining today. I have some really effective, really great partner compliance strategies that I have to share with you today that I've been using for quite some time with many of the brands that I support, and hopefully you'll find some really good takeaways today. Hopefully you will be able to provide some great tools for you to use as well. The partner community is comprised of resellers, distributors, OEMs, system integrators, and many more different types of partners that provide value to your brands. And together, you create best products and solutions possible so that you can be an industry leader. But what do you do when your partners plan to excel online, but they don't align with yours, when your plans aren't quite the same as what you may have agreed to? So today I want to touch on several different aspects of managing online partners, including ways that you can identify important types of online brand abuse that plague partner and affiliate programs, how to automatically monitor for brand misuse across multiple digital channels, including social media, search engines, and websites as well. And then I'm going to share some tips for building an easy-to-follow compliance and enforcement policy, and share with you some proven best practices that has worked with me and a lot of my brands that I support for managing partners and resolving a lot of compliance issues. Many brands look to their partners to help increase the value and effectiveness of their products and services. Brands also put a lot of trust in many different types of partners. The dealers that support many of the auto industry, distributors who carry industry-wide lots of different types of products. A lot of there's these partnerships. The brands will build in reward programs and offer incentives to support these partners and strengthen your brands so that you can deliver the best possible products and services to your customers. But then there's the question, how can you be certain that your partners are supporting your brand online and following guidelines that you've agreed to in these agreements and these partnerships? Moving to the next slide. Thanks, Reagan. I want to talk about how partners go astray. Many partners can go astray because oftentimes they're not aware that they're outside of the policy. Maybe they're either new to the business, they just came into the program, maybe they're not aware of an agreement in place, and a lot of times partners, they don't read the agreements. Maybe they don't read, like they say, all the fine print. They're not aware of it. And a lot of partner programs can get so big and grow so rapidly that they become unmanageable. Whitelists get lost. They don't get updated, or they're managed by several different departments or several different people. People move around, and they don't communicate across the departments. So a lot of these partner programs can easily and quickly become unmanageable. Partners who willfully operate out of compliance often see opportunity, and in many cases online, including in websites or the search engine marketing, online auctions and exchanges, and now especially with social media growing, I see a lot of partners finding opportunity there. Partners think they're promoting themselves oftentimes, but they're creating an unfair advantage, and this can hurt the overall partner program and the brand. These partners registering multiple domains, or they're selling products through online auctions, these are the ones that are winning big trips or going to the President Clubs. These are the ones that we want to watch for, that they're excelling, they're doing really well. We want to be certain why, and we want to make sure that it's a fair playing field for all the partners. Because meanwhile, the compliant partners, they're aware of this behavior. It's discouraging them from participating in your program. And these partners may leave the program, or they might even become non-compliant to remain competitive with these other partners. Let's move next into some examples of brand misuse. I want to show you some examples here that we have in online space. We're going to take a look at websites, what we might see in search engine advertising. We'll take a look at what is common in marketplaces or online auctions, and then we're going to talk about social media. Why don't we move here to the next slide and talk about domain abuse. This is a very common non-compliant practice. A lot of partner programs do not allow the use of the brand in a domain. They don't allow their partners to register domains with the brand in it. And in many cases, brands will provide a domain or in their policy that will state what is allowed, or oftentimes they'll register the domains and host those so that they have control of the activity on those sites. There are many different ways to manage that, but in most cases, brands do not allow the partners to register those. Oftentimes, the partners will use the brand combined with different terms to enhance traffic and gain visibility to their brand, while they may be lowering the value of the corporate branding by using terms like cheap or bargain or discount. So we do want to watch for that and see if partners are using that as a way to drive traffic. Other common misuse you'll see is parking pages. Registering domains and never posting content or sitting on them so that no one else can own that domain. There's also pages with sponsored ads, registering domains with the brand and posting advertising, which creates inconsistent brand experience and brand confusion. And then we'll see pages that will automatically divert to a different page, and oftentimes a competitor. Diversion, in this case, it only confuses the consumers, and it frustrates other partners that abide by the online policies. Another example I could give in this situation would be partners taking up territory. They'll go, let's say, for example, a car dealership will register a domain in Jacksonville, Florida, and then they'll go out and they'll register domains through many cities in the surrounding area, feeling that they're protecting that territory so that other car dealerships or even for the same brand can't own those domains. So then they feel like they're gaining all that traffic to their dealership. This can create high-level problems for the brand, because in the future when they want to expand and they go out to try to retain these domains, they're not available. So this is something else that you might want to keep in mind. Okay, let's move into the next slide. We'll talk about websites and what we often see in website abuse among partners. Oftentimes we'll see that they are displaying, or something you want to look at is, are they displaying the correct logos? A lot of partners will oftentimes, they will, you might provide a level program where you might have bronze, silver, gold, and maybe you have a partner who at one time was a gold premier partner, but maybe they haven't met their goals or reached their forecast over a certain amount of time and they've been bumped down to maybe a silver status. We want to watch those and make sure that they are clearly representing themselves, representing the brand properly and through the program. So that's something to watch for. A second is that they may be misrepresenting the brand by diluting it with their own or combining logos. Oftentimes they get very creative and they might take your logo and maybe place yours on top or create a whole new logo combining both the names of your brand plus the name of their company. Something else you might want to watch for. Other partners take notice to these practices and they get frustrated by those who are out of compliance, especially those that are thriving. Partners work really hard to earn their levels, and stronger partners, and they will become stronger partners if they know the brand's protecting the program. Oftentimes, partners will fail to provide disclaimers on their sites. This is another thing that you can check for. Or they fail to explain to the consumer that they are a partner, not the actual parent company. They can get very creative. Their sites look very good, and sometimes that can be very confusing to consumers. And then what about links on sites? And it's something else you might want to check and make sure that they're not linking to competitors or maybe using an authorized vendor. This would be an example, maybe a hotel chain. You want to ensure that all their links are going to where, based off your criteria or your policies, where you want them to go. Oftentimes, a hotel brand might require that all reservation systems link to their main reservation system. Something that you might want to check is to ensure that these links are resolving where you want them to go and that they aren't going to a competitor or maybe even a third-party booking service if that's something in your policy that you don't allow. All right, let's move over to the next slide here. I want to give an example of a website. This looks like a really professionally done site, but maybe it's not following the approved corporate branding. In this case, it's maybe a branded hotel chain that has required branding across all departments, and this is a restaurant who's come up with their own website. Sites like this cause confusion because the consumers end up being where they're not sure if they're still in the same brand or not. So it's good to monitor what the partners are doing or what they're providing to the consumers to ensure that there is standard branding across the board. Moving on, let's see moving next to search engine branding. Here we have some examples of abuse on the search engine result page. When you go to Google and search your brand, you get two kinds of results. You get the organic listing that Google brings up, and then you get the paid advertising on the top and on the side. The page content on the top, the organic listing, shows up in Google with the counter-branding language. And in this instant, you want to watch for what your partners might be posting. Say you're a luxury brand. You don't want your partners to be listing advertising for and using cheap or lower cost or discount along with your brand. So this is something that you might want to monitor to see what they're doing and what their behavior is here. And the next, how are your partners using your brand in their AdWord campaigns? Are you aware of the terms that they're bidding on and the ad copy that they are using? Partner activity can affect your marketing costs. It can increase spending and create lost leverage in the market as well. So in this case, you shouldn't have to compete against your partners. You know, it's good to outline in your policies what type of behavior that you do or don't allow in this space. Okay, next slide is marketplaces or online auctions, otherwise known as exchanges or marketplaces. They're called many different things. These can be one of the most damaging partner abuses if you're not watching and aware of the activity that's happening in this space. A lot of gray market products can be moved in quantity through this channel. Here, many partner programs don't support reseller marketplaces or third-party exchanges, and these exchanges don't have policies against channel violations. I've worked with a lot of brands who they get very concerned about this area, and it can take some time to get familiar with the practices in this space and what can and can't be sold. And honestly, I haven't worked with many auctions or marketplaces in this space that do protect any channel violations. So check these platforms to see if your partners are selling through these channels. Exchanges have policies to protect brand owners for copyright and trademark, but it's the brand owner's responsibility to manage channel violations with their partners. So again, it's important to look for seller patterns and abuse outside your program selling policy and know if your partners are selling in these platforms. Okay, let's move over to the next slide as an example. In this example, products are offered for sale outside the channel, and this can be confusing to the consumer. They'll come across this, they'll see quantity, they'll question if the product's legitimate. Oftentimes it's sold at a discount too, so this can be very, very confusing to consumers. And a loss at revenue for the brand over too, because the product's moving through a non-authorized channel. All right, let's move over to the next slide, please, to social media. With the rapid growth of social media, partners are finding ways to use major social media platforms as a way to get in front of local consumers and use many of the same non-compliant tactics we see in other online space. First and foremost, what I see the most is impersonation pages. A lot of partners will use, because you can duplicate page names in most of these platforms. You'll see the brand used over and over again to create new pages. They'll oftentimes combine like the brand with the geographical location. And then like in websites, there's a lot of unauthorized use. There's logos. A lot of times there's no logos. It may use the brand name in the page name, but there's not much other reference to the brand. A lot of partners will use this as an opportunity for advertising, local advertising. They'll use copyrighted material. Unless you have some policies in place to kind of outline what you want to see here, you will see a wide variety of brand abuse in this area. A lot of partners like to claim in this area that they're authorized or they're premier, whatever they feel it can take to try to get some traffic to them in that area. So it is really important to monitor activities so you know what they are doing. And then the next slide here, we have an example for you to show you just what you will see a lot of, or what I do see a lot of colorful advertising, whatever they can find to try to get some visibility. So something to consider here is, again, what will your policies be? Do they need to use a logo? Is it okay if they use copyrighted material? What are you going to look for in this space? And what are you going to expect for your partners to follow here on this platform? Moving on, next, just kind of a recap on talking about online abuse, what partners can do. Here are some of the key reasons on how it can affect your brand. One, again, is brand delusion, different practices that they can take online that can dilute your brand and cause bad user experiences. Revenue loss, we see a lot of in paid search advertising, a lot of competing with the keyword bidding. A lot of times if you're competing against your partners and bidding on those keywords, it just rises the costs. So something you might want to consider. Again, I do have brands that I support that they some have policies against it. They don't want you bidding on any of the keywords that they do. They all have a list, and then some keep it open. They feel that any advertisement is good advertisement. So there's a wide range of how you want to consider what you would allow your partners to do. Again, channel erosion, just inconsistent experiences for your customers. Where do you want them to have a consistent experience? Where do you want them to go? And where do you want them to be able to find your products? And where don't you want your products to be? And then finally, legal liability, but being responsible for the actions that your partners might be taking. Okay, let's move next slide to, we'll talk about some best practices for partner compliance. I'd like to share with you some tips that I have, what's worked with me and many of my brands that I support that's been very successful. First of all, I really highly recommend a well-written agreement that partners understand, and that would be whether it be your program that you have, that it would include everything from what products they can and can't sell and where they can or can't sell them, what the margin will be, to what their forecasts and how much they're supposed to sell, to clue over to your policies, policies off or online. But lots of things to consider there is just how do you want your program to look and what do you want them to do and what are your expectations of them. If you don't have policies in place, online or otherwise, many brands provide online policies. You can go online and look what other brands are doing. Look to what you can put in place with your partners. Most policies state what they can or cannot do, and most brands that I work with have a dedicated spot on their site where they clearly outline their partner policies. Next would be start with your largest partners. Contact them directly. Share with them your compliance efforts. Ask them to share in the efforts with you to bring partners below them into compliance. Many premier partners, large OEMs, retailers, most of them or a lot of them have a level of partners below them. Ask them to assist with you in your brand efforts to bring all the partners into compliance. Many clients will start with a mass notifications. Maybe it's so big and you don't know where to get started that you just come with a mass email and just tell them what you're going to do. We've been very successful. We're growing, and we appreciate our partners and what they do, but now we're going to put this effort in place where we want to protect and back up our policies and our program. Explain to them what you're doing and then give them time to comply, work together, and put a process in place with timelines, follow with letters requesting compliance. And then those that are left or remaining, then you can put an escalation process in place if necessary. Next, make sure your policies are well known to your partners and they have full access and links to your policies online. It's just really helpful that you go through all this trouble to build this great program and build these policies that you want them to follow. Make sure that they understand where they are and the easy access so that they know and they can easily go to and see what their expectations are so that they can ensure that they're following them. Another thing would be is to let your partners know that you have an active brand protection program and that you monitor them. In most cases, if someone knows that they're being monitored or watched, they're pretty compliant. And I think in most cases, most partners want to comply. A lot of times it's just that they're not reminded or they forgot or they're doing something and it's a little bit at a time they're going astray and they keep getting away with it. So the next thing you know, they've gone far astray. But I think once you reel them back in and explain what's happening, they want to become compliant. You can also provide information for them at forums or events. I have brands that do that. It's very successful. They share with them what they do and why they do it, and most partners appreciate it. Explain to them how you're going to support and protect your partners, and a lot of them, they like that. They like to hear that you're doing that. Another really great way to support your partners and your program is to create an internal cross-functional team that supports your brand protection efforts. This would comprise of, you want to include legal and marketing, even your domain manager, keep them in the loop, your reseller, program managers, anyone who would be involved with managing your partners. create an internal team, a cross-functional team that create an email address that is a branding email that can be shared, and this way you can share your efforts. You don't have to meet all the time, but you can come together on this email and bring ideas up, or maybe you have you put your efforts in place and somebody's contacted a premier partner and they're contacting you back and stating, I have all these questions, why did I get this letter? Then you can discuss how you want to manage this partner. Oftentimes it's like, well, someone in sales said that our partner could do this. This is a really great way for everyone to come together and discuss how you want to manage your partners in this in your brand protection efforts. Second, I have a second one here. Let's move to the next slide. Proactive monitoring. How can you monitor your clients and know what they're doing daily? And there's several ways for you to get started on this. Start with a partner list. I would say most companies that have a partner program, they started with a partner list somewhere. But they can get big and they can grow into different departments, so it's easy for them to get scattered. So something I would recommend would be to run an availability report of your domains. Reach out to someone that can help you with that, and try to get a list of if it's globally or just nationally, however far you want to expand. Run a list of all the domains that are available or not available. Just look at everything and see what has your brand in the domain, and then go through those and determine which are your partners, what's your owned, and what may be third-party infringements. It's a really great way to get started. Run daily registration reports. Track who is registering these domains on a daily basis. If a new branded domain comes in, follow through, look at it. Who registered it? Is it privacy protected? That can be alert you that maybe it's third party. But most partners I find that register domains with the brand in it don't usually privacy protect. So it comes in, you contact them. Oftentimes, they're really they'll easily transfer that over, especially if they hear from you right away. So it's another way to look at that. Know who your partners are. Start with the whitelist. Send letters to confirm. You can send letters out to, if you have an existing list and you don't know where to start, send a letter to everybody. Are you still participating in the program? Are you still at this address? Any way to start communication with them. We're starting a brand protection program to protect our partners. Just any way that you can engage with them to get started is a great way to start putting your policies in place. Check periodically to ensure that they're using updated logos and copyright images. Also monitor advertising to ensure they're following policy. I think it's very important that you monitor what they are posting on their site. So if you're comfortable that they don't have the brand in the domain, but do you know what they're posting on their websites? Are they using your logos? Do you open up their home page and is it your logo at the top with other competing logos next to it? What are your policies? What do you want them to do? What are you going to allow them to do? And then are you going to check on them and ensure that they're using the nice images and the images that you want to see? Are they representing your brand the way that you agreed that they would, and are they presenting themselves and your brand as how you've agreed to in your policies? And another thing would be to check the links from the site resolve where they should. We talked about this earlier. If they're going to link on sites with your brand, where do you want those links to go? And are you monitoring them to make sure that they are linking to the correct space? Next would be, finally, and I think most importantly, is if you're going to develop a partner program and if you're going to put policies in place, I think it's very important that you uphold those policies. It's very common that when you start trying to enforce your policies online, you have many partners that are going to respond with excuses for them not to be compliant. I'm very successful and I move a lot of your product. Why can't I keep this branded domain? It's never been a problem before that I've had competitors' logos on my site. You'll hear all different types of excuses, but I think it's really important for you to support your policies that you've been in place. Let them know that you understand, but this program is to bring all of your partners into compliance, and for a strong brand presence, you want them to become compliant as well. Next would be standing by your policy and explain why it's important. This is to ensure that we have a really strong online presence. It's important to our brand. It's important to you as our partner that we do this together. And finally, ensure that you provide a quick solution to them. So if you're going to contact them and ask them to become compliant, then make sure that you have something in place that you can take action and explain to them how they can become compliant. Next slide to talk to you about reaching out. So now that you know what they're doing, and how are you going to manage this? How are you going to contact them and ask them to become compliant? Through email notification, we don't really call it enforcing. We call it notification or education. We try to educate our partners to become compliant. They really like the soft approach. It's much more effective. And I found with many brands that I work with, we did all different types of letters, based on your industry or your type of relationship that you have. You can usually come up with some kind of a soft letter to notify them that this is what we know and this is how we want to correct this. So here's a nice example of an effective retailer notification that we use that's been very useful for some of my brands. It's informative and it's a great way to reach out to your partners. Let them know right away why you're contacting them. The next would be to get right to the issue so they know the letter's for them and that it's not spam. We all get a lot of emails, so I think it's really important right up front to say, this is why I'm contacting you. Identify the compliance problem. They don't always know. Like I said, they don't always read the policies. They don't always know what they might be doing wrong. So try to be really specific about why you've contacted them. And then give them direction and tell them in the letter how to make the correction. Very important because, again, a lot of it's just because we're active online. It doesn't mean that we understand what all the requirements are and how to keep up with what's expected of following the policies. And then it's possible that the letter will reach someone that's not aware of the online policy. So it's good to ask them to escalate, move this over to someone who does know how to help and try to get further assistance. I've found this approach is very effective with the brands that I work with. So I believe most partners will comply. Most brands that I work with that we've put these processes in place, these best practices, we see a very receptive, very high response rate. I would say most of them over 90%. So very, very effective. All right, so moving on to the next slide. In summary, to summarize, so today I know we covered a lot of information, just a lot of different takeaways from this, a lot of different areas that abuse comes from. It's important, again, very important for you to monitor, and a lot of different ways for you to monitor what your partners are doing online. If you don't know where to start somewhere, all the different ways, if it's just managing domains or it's just trying to get your list together of who your partners are, pick a place to begin and get started. Keep in mind that with proper management, partners can be brought back into compliance. I've done a lot of it, and it's been very successful. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen, and it can be very successful. Contacting partners and assisting them to become compliant will strengthen your partnerships in this online presence. Like I truly believe that it just makes your online presence stronger, because you might have, it seems like once you start looking at them, a lot of them aren't aware, and they are very eager to become compliant very quickly. You have these mid-range partners that they've been compliant the whole time, and they're struggling because the people above them aren't, so they get very excited that you're putting this into place and protecting what they've already done. And then you have very few, maybe the high-level ones that you might struggle with a little bit, but over time you'll get them there too. So that is wrapping up what I had to share with you today. I hope what I brought to you, if anything, you find a couple little bits and pieces in there that might be helpful to you. I am going to offer some Q&A here. Now Reagan's going to come back on, and she's going to assist me with asking some questions. So I'd be happy to address any additional questions that you guys have, or what I may have covered.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Darla. That was a great overview. We're now ready, as she mentioned, to open it up to our Q&A session. And we've actually had some questions come in during the presentation, so I'll take a look at them now. And just as a quick reminder, if you do have a question, please be sure to submit them through the Q&A tab. You'll see that on your screen. And then you can submit any questions that you have that way, and we'll be sure to address them today. So let's see here. There's one that came in. Looks like they're wanting to get started with their program. They say, we don't know where to start. How do we get started? Darla, what would you recommend for getting started initially?
Well, if you're talking about a program, there's, if you have your program, a reseller program, I would, overall, the program can be a little different than your policies. Your policies would be included. So for a program, I think, again, you can look to what other online brands might be offering as far as reseller programs. But when you're looking at policies, is which mostly what I'm trying to discuss with you today, is once you have your program in place and you know how you want your partners to support your brand, the next would be, what policies do you want to be put in place to support your program? So with those policies, you're going to develop expectations that are supporting the program. So partners can, in the program, you can sell online and you can have a website, but the policies state that you have to create your own website, and the domain that hosts this website does not allow to have our brand in the domain. So I hope that answers your question.
And Darla, you'd mentioned the importance, too, of brands featuring a specific page on their website where it's clearly outlined where those online policies are. So I believe that that's a great tidbit there, just to make sure that it's very visible to different partners, so they know where they stand initially.
Absolutely. Putting your policies online, and even if you haven't done that, something that you might want to consider is to, even if you're just getting started, find a spot on your site, even if you need to bury it under, if you don't want it really visible, if you can kind of bury it somewhere, maybe in T's and C's or in your legal area if you want. A lot of partners will create, a lot of brands, will create a login for their partners to go to a partner page. And if you're just getting started, I've seen where partners will grow this section over time. Maybe you're just getting started and you just have one PDF that states your domain policy, and it just states, a brief statement, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. And then maybe over time you create, you have another policy that is logo usage, and you create a new PDF and you put that in the same location, and then you can open that PDF up, and it states that you can use this logo, and this certain logo is required on the front page in the upper right-hand corner, whatever your specifications are. And then you can start splitting out your policies, maybe copyright. You can go to this library, and these are the copyrighted images that you are allowed to use on your site. And then once, you start getting these PDFs and you start growing your site, your location for your partners, maybe you want to move it to a full online policy. I've seen a lot of them are PDFs, a lot of them are links. There's a lot of different ways that you can start this up, initiate it, and then grow it over time. And then, yeah, there's just lots of different ways to get it started. So I would recommend, a lot of this is available online. You can go out and see what other brands are doing, and you can get some really great ideas.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Now, I did see another question come in, and it seems like it would be a very common question for brands. So what if I don't know who my partners are? How would a brand go about identifying who their key partners are for driving business for their brand?
You bet. I get this question a lot because a lot of times, especially, you'll have a really successful program and a lot of people want to support your product, and they come in, and oftentimes maybe all they have to do is sign up online, and they're a partner. So it can easily grow out of to become unmanageable. So lots of different ways to get started to figure out who your partners are. Start with the list that you do have. Start contacting them, emailing them, or just doing a massive letter. You could do it that way too, or a massive email. Again, I really highly recommend one of the best ways is to start looking to where those domains are, what domains are registered that have your brand in them. Oftentimes, the majority of those are your partners. And then you can always look to premier partners, larger partners, ask them to share with you who their partners below them are. Those are some of my best recommendations to get started.
Perfect. Thank you. And then looks like we have time for just one more question, and this is more a question on a global partner perspective. They're asking, what do you recommend for a global partner monitoring in high-risk countries? Is there anything different that should be done with a standard global approach?
So high risk. So I'm not sure what high risk means, but it's the only thing I can think of is if you might be talking about if you have a partner in maybe a geographical area that owns a CCTLD, like a country-coded domain name with your brand in it, that might be hard to recover if perhaps a partner's registered that, and so that's the only aspect I can think of that might be high risk. You're welcome to email me more, and we could talk about it more after. But as far as globally, I think depending on your partner program and whatever your specifications are of the program and the policies that you put in place, I feel confident that you can contact any of these partners and explain to them what your policies might be and what your expectations are. And I have worked with brands where we have made contact globally, and yeah, it's still been very effective. Again, I think most partners, especially if they want to continue to support your product, they're going to work with you to become compliant.
Well, perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much, Darla, for answering all these questions and for presenting such great content today. I certainly appreciate you sharing your experiences and as well as some best practices for our audience. And I'd also like to thank everyone for tuning in and for their participation. And as a reminder, we will be sending out a follow-up email with a link to the webinar presentation slides and a recording over the next couple of days. And if for some reason we didn't have an opportunity to get to one of your questions earlier on, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards offline. Well, that concludes our webinar for today. Thanks again for tuning in. And